Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Monday Discourse for today, May 30th, 2022. It's a scorcher out there, everybody. I don't know if it's going to come off, but I'm a little, I was just outside getting coffee and I'm a little sweaty. But hi, I'm Tristan. Welcome to this stream. Just want to let you all know that I am Tristan from the YouTube channel Step Back at stepbackhistory.com. And I'm also the co-host of the podcast It's Probably Not Aliens at probsnotaliens.com. I stream Mondays at noon when my internet lets me. I think somebody asked a question about that, so we might get to that a little bit later. I go by he, him pronouns, and if you want to support my work, you can go to patreon.com/stepbackhistory. You can use, if you have Amazon Prime, one free Twitch Prime subscription per month to support me at no extra cost to you. It's just baked into your Amazon Prime subscription, and really, it's money that if you don't give to somebody, Amazon just gets to keep it, so I would welcome it. If you do have a little bit of cash, things like super chats and bits and Twitch subscriptions are all welcome. Speaking of which, I want to say thank you to totally different username for last week at my aborted stream doing a 8-month sub. So thank you so much for that. Yeah. Okay. So that's that. My latest video is on the Oklahoma City bombing, which did pretty well. I think you guys liked it. My next video, which is coming out right after this stream is over, so right at 2 o'clock after the stream is done, you can go and check out my video on police, and specifically about how a shockingly high number of police seem to be members of the militia movement. Very interesting little experiment. I'm trying to do something where I prepare my shows a bit more like a podcast, so that in the sort of distance between these longer, bigger projects that I have very limited time to work on now, thanks to changes in my life and everything like that with parenthood and all that, that I can do to sort of keep you guys keep in touch, you know. So that's that. If you want to submit questions for future streams, I'm going to put a link in the chat that you can go to ask questions for these streams. So there's that. And of course, if there's any new people, first-time watchers, please make yourself known in the chat, because we are always happy and excited to see new people show up. So please make yourself known, shout out, and everybody give them a warm welcome. Yeah. That being said, I guess it's time to see if Sweden still has the telephone.
Hey, yo.
Whoa, hello.
Hello?
Hello. Sorry, I have your volume turned up really loud from last time, and I'm just turning it down. Now it's normal. You're still, still a little hot. I'm going to turn it down a bit more, but it's fine.
All right.
I think we're good.
Bing, bing, bong. Hi, my name is Steve Jobs, and I'm here to sell an iPhone.
Ha. All right, I'm going to turn you up a little bit because I overdid it. Live PDF rotating. Hi.
We're rotating live on stream.
How are you doing? It's been a minute.
I'm doing well. I'm editing my upcoming video that I've been working on for 2 months, and I'm realizing it's about as long as my usual videos. I expected it to be much longer and more ambitious. It turns out, if you take longer to work on something, more work presents itself to do in that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that is how it is. But I'm fine. I'm doing great. I'm right now, actually. Before you called me, I was writing the very last sort of like voiceover sections.
Mm-hmm.
And after the stream is over, I'm going to record them, put in the video, out for Patreon. Life is good.
Life is good. Life is good when you have content coming out. I have a video coming out right after the stream, so I'm feeling good because it's been like a month since my last video. Over a month.
It's been 2 for me, so like I know the feeling.
Yeah. Oh, you should probably tell everybody who you are and what you do.
I understand. My name is Steve Jobs, and I'm here to sell an iPhone. No, my name is Mia Mulder. I make YouTube videos.
Mm-hmm.
My next video is about how we know history and how history can be twisted for weird ends.
I've heard rumors about this fact.
Yes.
So
apparently it can happen.
So,
So I made that kind of video.
yeah, so to give a bit of an update, last week I tried to do another solo stream, and my internet service provider decided to just go to town on me again. So that's fun. I thought I had fixed it, but I guess not. So I got to figure out what that's all about. But it might be just the fact that internet infrastructure in my neighborhood is not good. I found the answer, and someone asked a question about it, so I'll probably answer then. But short answer is that apparently in Canada, our internet service providers basically, in times where the infrastructure is basically maxed out or getting close to maxed out or getting close to being unstable, they start throttling the upload speed of internet connected people and they prioritize throttling people who have used the most upload in the previous week. So for someone who, say, makes YouTube videos or something like that, who might have an outsourced reason to, or, uploads a hour-long WAV file to Scott every week, might be an outside user, and then I get throttled, and then I can't do internet.
Yeah, and that's actually insane to me, because why on earth is that the way that you would deal with internet connections?
This is because
because that never happens here, and like I know Sweden has pretty good internet, but come on.
Canada has three. Canada is interesting. Canada is the single most expensive country in the world to have a cell phone and to have an internet connection.
Oh, what?
Yes, for a couple reasons. One, small population, big area. Canada has a population of 37 million people, and it's the second largest country by landmass on Earth.
I guess, but you all live in like the same area.
We all live about 100 kilometers from the U.S. border. Yeah.
Yeah. Come on. I know that's a reason, but come on.
Yeah.
That doesn't track. Sweden has cheap as fucking cell phone thing. Our population density is also hella low.
Well, the second reason is probably why, and that is that Canada's telecommunications and internet and cable television are all owned by 3 mega corporations. And these 3 basically have between TELUS, Bell, and Rogers, that they basically cover all internet, cell phones, and television.
My God.
Yeah. And so all of those things are way more expensive here than they are in the US, for example. And for other fun facts, like Canada, you still can't, in a mainstream Canadian platform, get unlimited data plans on your phone. We have not gotten there yet.
They haven't been invented yet.
Yeah.
Christ.
Which,
it's
as like someone who...
two tech trees that you just didn't bother to explore.
Yeah. And as somebody who has recently gotten into a hyper focus of playing MTG Arena on my phone, not good. Not good. My rank is going to suffer as a result.
You're right. Is this why Canada doesn't have like the most like esports legends? Maybe.
We have the most esports legends. We do have a few, don't we? I don't know.
No idea.
Canada.
I know nothing about esports or Canada.
I used to follow the professional StarCraft 2 scene very briefly in 2010 when I had a very different life than I have now. I
remember those.
To the weird times where I actually have like several friends who to this day are still like professional StarCraft 2 players. And so yeah, it's what deck do I run? I'm a white weenie man. I am a white weenie. That will make sense to only the people who know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so everything's wild.
No clue. Nothing.
Have you heard of the trading card game, Marjorie Taylor Greene?
I've heard of it. I've never played it.
So if you play Marjorie Taylor Greene, there are different types of decks that you can make, and one is where you are cheap and you hate everybody, and you just make lots of little guys. Because I always just try to play the Zerg in every game that I play, no matter what the game is or whether it's relevant. So,
Zerg rushing is always a valid strategy
it's
in
true.
every single scenario.
I Ling Rush even in card games. So the two decks that I run are White Weenie and like just goblins with mono red. So mono red, mono white. I am literally, I don't believe in calling like everything that is toxic in a community cancer. I am literally cancer. I am cancer incarnate.
Oh my god.
Because everyone's got all these complicated things and they try to do all these clever things. And I'm just like, what if a lot? What if like my answer is a lot? What if I just throw a lot of things?
Many.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it. That's all that. But that's a new hyper focus that I will not burden you with. But hey, we just got a new follower. I haven't heard the Macarena in a while. Let's see. Yeah, APC Burringnet. Thank you for the follow. Okay, so is there what is the discourse this week? Is there a discourse?
I know that J.K. Rowling said something about being trans is a luxury desire or some shit.
Oh,
I haven't
fun.
actually found the source of that one though, but it seems very fun, and I want to hear it.
Lovely. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what she's. I don't. So okay, this is the one the news I do not know how to react to, and that is apparently Jack Sparrow is like a domestic abuser, and there's like a whole thing about it. I haven't been following it because I don't really. I try to make a rule of not caring about the lives of people who have 7-digit bank accounts. So
Very smart.
So I'm like when everyone was freaking out about that thing with Will Smith a couple months ago, I was like, I do not care. You could not, like, one guy with a 7-digit bank account hit another guy with a 7-digit bank account over the honor of another person with a 7-digit bank account. You could not pay me to care about this. And it seems like this is the same story.
Yeah. Yeah. So God, that has, I guess that's been the discourse. The fact that some people just casually found out that like a lot of right-wing sort of like manosphere like outlets have been artificially inflating the coverage of the trial in sympathy of Johnny Depp. Which explains so much about why it's fucking everywhere. That has sort of like went under the radar somehow. Propaganda is real, and it's trying to convince us that Johnny Depp is a nice guy.
Yeah, I mean, like, who has sympathy for Johnny Depp? Like, his vibe is all off. Oh, and yeah, and somebody also pointed out that like 2 mass shootings happened last week in the U.S. One of which involving like children as young as like 9 years old, which is fucked up beyond like it's freaking Sandy Hook 2, and it's
one of them is Sandy Hook 2, and the other one is like the other one was promptly forgotten about, like a day after it happened.
Yeah,
because it was by a guy who like believes in the Great Replacement theory.
Yeah, the one that happened by a person who has, I think, a vaguely Spanish name. That one is talked about forever, but the one that is by the white supremacists, that one gets buried. America is definitely post-COVID now. It's back to its regular old white supremacy and gun obsession. Oh boy. So like, I don't really like, the thing is like, this is one of those times where it's like, I hate being a take haver, because this is like a time where it's like, oh, you're expected to have, like, sometimes like there's things where like you're expected to have an opinion, and I'm like, it's bad, man. Yeah. It's bad.
Sucks. The fact that Ted Cruz is like arguing to regulate doors.
Yes. Door control. I did hear about this.
We need door control.
That they wanted that the new way, because every time there's a mass shooting that is like a national tragedy, the right in the U.S. decides to do something to try and pivot away from talking about the fact that you can buy assault rifles in the U.S. And they moved to this time to talk, saying that schools need to be designed like freaking like CS:GO levels.
Yeah.
And that like
entryway, and that's it.
It's a sign of a healthy country that every school needs to be designed like a fortress. Like it's like one of the
with guards and like tactically trained teachers.
Yeah, like the first time that I went to Mexico, like you have to get used to the fact that like banks are guarded by armed guards with like machine guns.
Yeah.
And it's like that's like a sign that like, hey, like I think everyone knows Mexico has a pretty bad crime problem with like Los Zetas and like the power of all these fucking cartels. And it's like that's not a sign that things are going well. If the U.S. has to start designing its schools to be like prisons, basically, which, hey, I'm already losing my hair. I just need to go get my sweater real fast. Because somebody might have something to say about the fact that schools are literally turning into prisons. To the point, okay, so my wife is a American expat, and she told me about this, that in the U.S., when kids are in school, like when school starts, they lock the doors and you can't leave.
I've heard of this.
Like
that has to be a that has to be a fucking fire hazard.
Yeah, like when I was a kid in high school, my friends and I would like go out for lunch.
Yeah.
And like
you can't even do that during your lunch?
No. They're only they're only allowed outside during designated recess or something.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and it's like Michel Foucault. The thing is, like, I know that like there's like a flavor of Marxist that hates Michel Foucault, but there is nobody who has predicted American culture better than Michel Foucault.
Really good philosophy. It's just only about America.
Yeah.
He was terminally online. That explains it.
Mm-hmm.
He was too America pilled.
Oh my god.
The fact that it's like, because this explains so much. Because like, here kids go out all the time, like out of schools, constantly, and it's fine. I don't understand. Is this one of the reasons why kids have a hard time leaving during school shootings?
I think that these doors are all like electronically set up so that if any sort of alarm goes off, the locks turn off. But I don't know, like America's got some like weird like, because like on top of like the locked doors, like this is like a thing that's like an American cultural touchstone that we've both probably seen through media that doesn't translate. With like you have to have like a hall pass, and they deputize like children to be like hall cops, and it's like this like.
Yeah.
It's like a total non-thing where I grew up, but it's like thinking about it, I'm like, man, that's kind of really prison-like, isn't it?
Yeah, I never understood the hall pass thing. The hall pass thing has always been weird to me. I don't understand it.
In America, you have to ask permission to go to the bathroom, and the teacher might say no.
Freedom.
Yeah. It's like
what a free fucking country.
Yeah, it's true. And like in the US, like the thing is like the country that claims it's the most free, I have never seen more like no trespassing signs, no like cuz like the thing is like this is like I was saying like how in Europe it's not like uncommon like if you're going to go out for a hike to just like walk through a farmer's field or something like that of like some farmer. And it's like in America if you did that you'd get shot. Like it's like
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
If you walk through someone's like private forest, you'd probably get shot.
It's wild.
America is very free in the sort of like 18th century definition of freedom, where freedom just means property rights.
Yeah, because America's entire constitution, which is over 200 years old, was designed only for the purposes of protecting the literal human property and physical property of the wealthy elite that made it. It's basically a libertarian seasteading project.
Yeah.
Oh
That's
boy.
that's one of the things that I love about like American history, because people talk about like the Americans were being taxed too harshly, and they, taxation without representation. That's why they rebelled. Which I guess is true, but like a lot of the people, like even during the American Revolution, were just like straight up libertarians who didn't want to pay any tax.
Yeah. That's why, like in early America, you couldn't vote if you like the only people who could vote were people who owned property. It speaks a lot to like how their prioritization works, which it's also sort of a holdover from, if you want to go super like Marxist history on it. It's because in a primarily agricultural economy, land is wealth, right? Like today,
Yeah.
assets are wealth, which means like owning financial products as wealth. Well, 100 years ago, owning industrial manufactories was wealth. And before that, it was owning land. And that's why, like, we still have like a pre-industrial idea of what is powerful and not based on how much land you conquer. And it's sort of why, like, once industrialization happened, people stopped caring about like wars of conquest, because all of a sudden land isn't as important as having like all the factories and having all of the resources and having like
Yeah.
all the stuff, which is,
Yeah, and you can get that by just buying it.
yeah. My baby is crying, Cornet chat. Yes, his mother is probably trying to get him to calm down. Turns out they cry a lot. That's the trick.
So interesting. I can't hear that. I guess chat hears that. I don't.
It happens.
I am immune to the sound of baby.
Yeah. Good on you. Yeah, it's a lot.
Mm.
So yeah, we do answer questions though, apparently, on this
That's when
stream.
we don't have takes about like American door policy.
Door policy, yeah, door control will be an interesting new thing. So I love it because I've been using Notion a lot. So now I have like a really well organized question list that self sorts itself. So it's like way more high
Ooh.
tech. It's great. And the first, I think we answered this question last time, which was, why do we still have to read texts from long dead authors even when many of the big ideas have been proved enormously flawed? I think we did answer that one. That was the last question
So,
we did
yeah.
last time. Okay. Then the first question we got here is from Matt, who is a longtime viewer of the channel. And this one will be interesting. Okay. This one has to deal more with politics in your area, and I feel like you'll have some stuff. Is it weird that I feel a personal connection to Belarus? My grandfather left during the Russian Revolution, and I wasn't raised in a Belarusian/Slavic cultural household, but I see the stuff happening to protesters there opposing Lukashenko being repressed, and I feel like I feel sad on a slightly more personal level than similar repression in other countries. Is that weird?
Yeah. A little bit. But there's nothing wrong with it. I feel like it's a normal human reaction to sort of form a connection with your own history, right? Like that. I feel like that's extraordinarily common and normal, and like there's nothing wrong with that. And because of that connection, we form like weird emotional attachments that might not make too much sense. Like I feel, like I feel a weird connection to when I hear like about like like descendants of Swedes in the U.S. who I have absolutely no relation with, and who decidedly left Sweden to have a life in the U.S. Doesn't make any fucking sense. But it's one of those things that like once you like connect yourself to a national identity, which everyone does because we live in a society, then those emotional attachments start to happen. But it is weird. And it's weird for everyone.
Unperfect Mom, thank you for the subscription. Yes, I agree, because I also have a weird emotional connection to the French language and the Francosphere. Despite the fact that my connection to French Canadian heritage is like 2 generations removed. Like my grandmother was a Francophone, but never once spoke French to me. And my mother never learned French at all from her. And it's like the largest slice of my ethnic pie chart, but my ethnic pie chart is wacky as hell. It's huge. It's got all sorts of weird stuff. But for some reason, that's the one that I have the most affinity with. And I still, like, yeah, think about it. And I think way too much about French Canadian stuff for how much it affects me. For someone who is first language English and grew up entirely, or lived in almost my entire life, for an exception of 3 years, in Ontario, in the English part of Ontario. It's because our culture is just white supremacy and McDonald's in the US, so everyone is desperate for anything to provide an identity. I think that is true of a lot of settler colonies. Like, I think that's true of Canadians as well. We are desperate to have a history that because a lot of North American culture is just capitalism. So we long for any identity that is not just you either long for an identity that is based on very tenuous roots to the old country, or you just identify yourself by the things that you consume. Those are the two routes you could go down to find a identity, I guess.
That's why the Marvel Cinematic Universe is technically a religion.
Yes.
A cultural identity. It's an ethno-religion, the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Your ethno-religion, it's going to be either Marvel or Star Wars, or I feel like those are the two. Those are the two that you can have.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. So in like 50 years, when we have all just been amalgamated into the singular monoculture of capitalism, the only ethnicities that will exist are based on what your favorite Disney franchise is. And so like, and then like people will have name, like the thing is like people will start taking names from Marvel movies and from Star Wars movies. And that will become the new ethnicity. Like they'd be like, oh yeah, this person's like name is Pembroke Shitlow, which means that they're a Star Wars person, yeah,
they're a follower of the Glove Shitto religion.
Yeah, exactly. And like I don't know. I mean, it's about as real as ethnicities really are. So there you go.
It's just because America. I feel like the defining action of America and Canada, because I feel like America and Canada are very different than other sort of like American republics.
Mm-hmm.
Because America was founded to make money, essentially, and Canada has always been a corporation that sort of like that the UK sort of gave up on, and those aren't really sort of like defining. Basis for a culture.
Yeah, Canada is a for-profit corporation masquerading as a country.
Exactly. I went to uni in a building older than your country, and yeah. I feel like over in due time, I feel like you will have a culture, but I think it's just gonna take a bit longer.
Well, it's like you're like the thing is like that's not even it's not even. I'm not even trying to say like, oh, America, like Canada is young and ruled by corporate. Like it's ruled by corporations in like a very literal sense. Like I think like 4 out of 5 of the biggest mining firms in the world are in Canada, are headquartered in Canada. And like a majority of the land mass of the country is government owned land that is then leased to resource extraction corporations. Like, and we're more, and like we claim to be a democracy, but are more or less governed by like a single political party that basically does whatever the corporations say. Like, it's not even like a joke. But yeah, we were made to hunt beaver so people could make hat, and now we're here, and now we have Timbits. That's our.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is about a Karl Popper. I don't know who this person is. Let's find out. Karl Popper was a liberal philosopher in the mid-20th century. One of the things he did was come up with a definition of pseudoscience. He said something is pseudoscience if it doesn't make claims that can be easily be proven or disproven, and thus prove or disprove the overall hypothesis. basically, if a hypothesis is super vague and basically anything that happens can be made to fit into it, it's pseudoscience. The two examples he give are Freudians and Marxists, because basically whatever happens, proponents of those ideas will say that they support them. Nothing could happen that would prove a Freudian or Marxist wrong, so they're both pseudoscience. Obviously, fuck Freud, but what do you think of that criticism of Marxism?
I think there are multiple things you can do to disprove Marx theory, though.
Yeah, like if
Like,
you...
or think like things that could happen in the world.
Yeah, it does seem that like the like the way that certain actions turn out could, because like Marx's theory is overall that pretty much all human action is driven primarily by economics. That's like Marxism in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And that we are more and that we are more or less ruled by, or we more or less organize into societies based on those that produce and those that consume, or those that own and those that work, basically. And like they're like, first of all, it's weird to make a claim about that being pseudoscience, because science is about factual claims about the universe, and Marxism is a study of economics, which is a social science. And humans have a weird thing of not following these rules.
Yeah, because like all types of philosophy would not be able to fit in here. Because like Freud, I mean, like I guess that Freudism or whatever you want to call it, like like what Freud is talking about is like fairly, you could claim that as a pseudoscience, because it is one of those things that is easily disprovable, but that followers of it like refuse to acknowledge a little bit, because it is an actual science. It deals with things that like can actually be measured.
Yeah, it makes falsifiable claims about how the mind works, basically.
Yeah.
And then, because like Freud's time in like mainstream psychology basically ended the second that psychology started doing experiments.
Yes. The second they actually tested anything, they were like, okay.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the fact that psychology began more as an offshoot of philosophy, and then in the 20th century became more of a science.
Yeah.
And I can't think of another field like history. They tried to do that with history, and they failed multiple times. In fact, if you like study like the history of history, it's trying to make it scientific and failing over and over again.
Failing so many times. They're still trying.
Yeah.
Like every generation of historians have this sort of like, okay, we need to stop fucking like making shit up. We need to like come down to like a scientific method of history, and then they all give up.
Yeah. There's in my field, in American historiography, the big one was this book called Time on the Cross, which is super controversial. It was just listen to this and think about this from like the fact that like a scientism dude bro in today's like our sort of culture would totally glom onto. It was supposed to be a numbers driven quantitative study of American slavery using only the facts to figure out how things were, and it came to the conclusion that their treatment wasn't as bad as it was made out to be, and that if you look at the data, they like slaves were hardly ever beaten on a day-by-day basis. Like on any given day, you had less than a 1% chance of being beaten, and it's just like, oh my god, and like various other things like that. And you can, and instead of like revolutionizing the field or making a difference, it basically made the entire historical profession in U.S. history unanimously like be like, all right, yeah, we're not doing this anymore.
There's an ongoing thing. This actually comes up in my video on Russia and Russian history, because Russian history within Russian academia, it's a clusterfuck of either people who want to like move away from like its more outdated its own like outdated views of its own history, but also people who want to completely make up history, or people who want to like view history as, again, like as a type of objective facts that only has to do about dates, locations, statistics, and that kind of shit.
Yeah, that's so. Are you kind of talking about like the Annal School stuff, or?
No, so like what I'm really talking about is like how um, uh, this has led to some people, primarily like mathematicians and astrophysicists, trying to do history by essentially like moving dates around to fit like eclipses and like stellar phenomena and things like that.
Yes, the guns, germs, and steelification of history. I understand this. When a
Yeah.
bird scientist thinks that he's figured out history,
This is all you need.
yeah, you just need to understand tropical birds, and you can understand that geography proved, like, because of geography, indigenous people were inferior to the whites when it came to technology, because they didn't
Because of
have
coal deposits. Yeah.
yeah, they didn't have good technology. Their tech tree wasn't good. They were in the Native American tech group, so they didn't westernize, and so they had a 10,000% decrease in their scientific development points. And it's like, oh my god.
The good old times of EU4.
Yeah. EU4 when it first came out was shockingly racist. Like the fact that they literally called it westernization, and that everybody who wasn't European just had like a blanket decrease in their technology until they figured out Western civilization.
Yes.
And then while you were westernizing, you went through a tumultuous period of all of the reactionaries freaking out about you adopting these new ways. It was awful.
Incredible. Eastern Europeans are, of course, 10% stupider than Western Europeans. And then you have, like, Sub-Saharan African, which are 50%. But the Turks are, of course, like...
That was
they're
some
not
like that was
just-
like some serious like there was something like super Victorian about that. Like I feel like that's like some like Swedish Victorian guy just being like, well, you see, like that. Don't you feel like there's like some sort of biology textbook about or anthropology textbook from like 1888 written by some Swedish person who's like, yes, the Eastern Europeans are 10% less intelligent, and like
the Turk, of course, is different from the other Islamists in that they are on the same level as the Orthodox Russians.
yes.
Just like, no, hold on. What a weird fucking game.
Yeah.
It's good now, but
It's true. I have a feeling that whenever I feel like EU5 is probably the next game that they'll probably push out after Victoria 3 is established.
yeah, probably.
And
Like, Crusader Kings 3 is also like they're leaning more into sort of realism now, which is a weird thing. Like more simulation, more than sort of like alternate history fantasy.
and EU is like the most gamey of them at the moment.
Oh yeah, it's just map painting galore.
But the early modern period would be really good to do realistically, so it'd be cool to see what they come up with that. EU4 is good, but only if you buy 200 euros worth of DLC.
Oh, don't worry, you can buy a subscription service now.
You can. I'm surprised that they haven't like tried to financialize EU4, where you just like. I guess that is that, right?
Yeah. Just buy a monthly subscription service to all the DLC.
Yeah. God, that's wild. Yeah, I remember once I was like, I'm gonna learn programming and make the guns or make the 1491 mod for EU4 that was going to make it about key inventions and stuff like that, and also decrease the sort of power curve that comes out of it, because Native Americans didn't have level 1 technology while everyone else had level 10 technology. That's not how it worked. Native Americans were like, they were going tete-a-tete with Europeans for a long time. And it writes up stuff like, the thing is like the gun, right? Like they talk like, and they're like, oh yeah, when you have guns, you just become more powerful. And it's like, that's not how it worked. Guns were only really preferable to bows and arrows and spears and stuff like that, because you could train somebody to use one in an afternoon, while like it takes years to become a competent archer. It probably wasn't until like the 1860s that with like the advanced like rifling and stuff like that a gun was as accurate as, say, a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
But the fact is, you could just take like 10,000 peasants and throw a gun in their hands and just do it. That's what Napoleon's whole thing was about.
Yes, that's why they have the fucking like squares and shit in the formations, because you don't need to aim good if you just have a wall of bullets going towards the enemy.
Yeah, and Napoleon was just like, Napoleon's strategy was, what if a lot? Like, what if instead of good, we went with a lot? And he fucking conquered Spain, Italy, Germany, and part of Russia just doing that.
Yeah.
That was like
shit.
Yeah. And I think he did, because everyone's like, he was such a genius with like the box shelling technique and stuff like that. And it's like, dude, his thing is that he was the only like leader at the time who was just like, you know what? I'm going to give the peasants guns instead of like having like the entire army being made up of the second and third sons of the aristocracy. Make it made up of just poor people with guns. Yeah.
Worked.
That's a strategy. What if a lot? He was the white weenie of Europe.
I mean, to be fair, if anyone was a white weenie of Europe, it is Napoleon.
Yeah. That was his nickname.
What that means.
People think that it was Le Petit General, but actually it was the white weenie.
The white weenie. Just smooth white weenie.
It's oddly fitting.
I know. It shouldn't work.
And then they fought Russia, and Russia had more, and that's how they won. Because nobody can beat Russia when it comes to a lot. It's like, what? A giant country made of bread? Sure, we're just gonna have all the people.
Giant country made of bread. Yo.
That's why Russia's doing its whole thing. It's because it used to be a giant country made of bread, and now it's just a giant country and it doesn't have its bread.
Yeah, it's a giant country made of oil.
Yeah. Speaking of which, that's the other story that like is going on that I am like not that like no one's talking about, that I'm like super concerned about, which is that because of the war, like a majority, like first of all, the wheat harvest, the global wheat harvest has been like severely disrupted, and that like a lot of countries have like 10-month stockpiles of wheat left, and then once that is over, we're going to have huge food shortages globally for like a good while.
Yeah, that I saw some economists saying like that they expect a food crisis to happen for like 2 or 3 years. So that's fun.
That's fun.
Because Ukraine has like a population of like 40 million or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they are, I mean, historically they have been the bread baskets of Europe, and they still are, because they produce enough food to feed 400 million.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't export any of that right now because of the war, and also Russia is stealing a lot of that grain, and also a lot of the harvest can't even be harvested because of the war.
Mm-hmm. I bet Canada's so Canada produces a lot of wheat too. And one of the things that was one of our uniquely communist moves was that in Saskatchewan, all of the wheat was run by like little independent farmers, but they all owned something called the Wheat Board, which was a government sort of crown corporation that would buy the wheat from all the farmers to then sell on the international market. So they privatized that, and now a Chinese mega firm owns the Wheat Board, because privatization is always good. And I'm like, oh boy, I wonder what's going to happen with that situation when wheat, like, you know, septuples in price in like next year.
Mm-hmm. And it's gonna increase the cost of food like across the board, right? Too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna be nasty, especially in Europe. I don't think, because Canada, I think, is rather autarkous when it comes to food, but Europe is not.
No, Europe relies a lot on Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
But Europe's absolutely fine, because we're like one of the richest areas of the entire world, so we're just gonna buy everything, and unfortunately, let the entire global south starve instead.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not gonna have any problems. Food prices are already up here, but that's another thing. I feel like that's happening everywhere. But you know, we're not gonna have issues here.
You're gonna keep getting your curry banana pizzas.
We are.
No
Although I
one.
am growing vegetable. I am going to start growing vegetables on the balcony now
It's a good idea. I have a backyard.
to you know.
When I don't have baby, or when baby is a little bit more autonomous, we are probably gonna start gardening again. And we do have like the doomsday box now. Oh boy. Yeah, that's the story that I'm always just like every time it comes up, it's like when there's like that really, really dark thing that you just don't want to think about and you're like, I'm just not gonna think about this for a little while. That's the one that's like, oh boy. Wheat is going to be rough.
Damn it, Marx and your economics.
Yeah, can you remind me what happened in Tunisia when bread prices went up 10%? Because if I remember correctly, it was the Arab Spring.
Yes, because the price of food is the highest. It's the biggest indicator of social unrest.
Yeah.
Right. Across history, across time, across geography, across culture, whenever food prices go up, so does social unrest. So
yeah, take that, Karl.
We're gonna have a good time.
So in conclusion, Karl Popper, this is the stuff that proves that Marxist analysis is still very useful. It's because a war in Ukraine is going to cause global instability.
Yeah. I love globalization. I love to have the entire world economy teetering on an edge at all times.
Yeah, it turns out that making the entire... Like, I'm not like a sort of old school communist that thinks that every country should have like an autarky, like where everybody needs to be completely self-reliant. But
you're not like full on Juche?
No, I'm not a Juche guy myself. But autarky does allow you to your country to have a lot more freedom politically. Like, the only reason why like a North Korea can do North Korea stuff is because they have just gone to extraordinary efforts to be completely self-reliant. And the problem is that North Korea is not. It's just that they're dependent on China, and China doesn't give a fuck. But the Soviet Union probably only lasted as long as it did because the Soviet Union was an autarky.
Yeah.
Bronze Age collapse vibes. Yeah, the more interconnected a economic system is, the more fragile it can be to total systems collapse.
Yeah. Are we gonna have a digital age collapse?
Oh boy.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
We have to watch out for the sea peoples.
The sea peoples were Ukrainians all along. The sea peoples were bread prices.
The real sea peoples were the friends we made along the way.
Yeah, well, kind of, yeah. So the next question we got here is, and this is one I am curious because this has been one thing that has defined my last few weeks, and I am curious what you think if you have observed it. Have you watched any episodes of Strange New Worlds?
No, but I've been wanting to. I've been so fucking busy with work, and the tiny amount of time that I've actually had free, I've been watching Stranger Things, but I desperately want to watch it because it seems really fun, and I've seen people on Tumblr talk about it a lot, and like a lot of people who I follow in sort of Star Trek circles, they're talking about it, and it seems really good.
Yes, I have watched it. I have loved every single episode, and oh my god, okay. Basically, here's the selling point. It is like structurally a 90s Star Trek show, but it is written with sort of modern ideas of serialization and continuing storylines. It is the chocolate and peanut butter of Star Trek because it has there's been 3 episodes. All 3 episodes have had 3 different stories.
Oh my god. Good. They finally learned from 2 shows with 3 seasons.
Yeah, and that every episode has a self-contained story, but because it's a 21st century show, it also allows for sort of these continuing overarching plot lines and backstories. But it also means that things are episodic enough that you have characters that spend time with each other and stuff like that. Like you have like those things where like Like there was one episode where there was like damage to the ship, and so two characters, Cadet Uhura and the engineer, were stuck in the shuttle bay together, and they have to like. But the thing is that I don't know if you know this, but do you remember in Enterprise where they had that like subspecies of Andorians that were white and blind?
Yes.
So the engineer is one of those.
Oh.
The engineer of the Enterprise is one of those. And what happens is that they're dealing with like an overheating thing, and he touches the panel to do something, and he burns his hand, so he can't do any of his tactile stuff. So he has to talk Uhura through fixing all of the coolant stuff. And it's like this cool like thing that you would only have on like a like. If it keeps going the way it is, it may start rivaling D Space Nine, and it's like.
Oh.
Balancing serialization and story of the week and also world building, because one of the things they're doing a whole lot of is they kind of did with Picard too, is they're starting to world build what's happened in the world from like they basically implied that January 6th was like the first stepping stone towards the eugenics wars, which was the first stepping stone towards World War III.
Are you kidding? First of all, is this a joke?
No. They don't mention January 6th by name, but there's a part where, like, basically
they show, like, all the bad parts of, like, human history in the 20th century.
Yeah, they basically say that things going to shit right now is basically now, according to them, the beginning of, like, the events that lead to, like, World War III and the eugenics wars and stuff. And they also talk about how things are not quite right. Like, one of the characters is a descendant of Khan Noonien Singh, and like she gets discriminated against because there is like even though she's not an augment, they have like you're a relative of the famous evil augment, so we're kind of giving you shit for it.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I like that.
And
I watched like an episode after I finished work today.
Yeah, because there's a whole episode where like they talk about how there was a species that genetically modified themselves, and that the Federation basically like just completely blocked them out because they would not accept anybody who was genetically engineered into their society, and it caused like all sorts of problems. So like they're playing, they're doing some cool world building. And I mean, nice. 23rd century Star Trek era isn't super fleshed out when it comes to like the politics and everything going on. So there's some really cool stuff to develop because it's still a little bit closer to our moment. Yeah. And the other cool thing I think is neat is that it's this weird thing where it's written in modern day, so it's trying to have modern day sensibilities, right? Like representation and like all sorts of like good stuff on that. But it's also supposed to be a modern day, like it has like a lot of stuff where it's trying to create this 60s feel to it too. So you've got like this weird mix of like how it's translated. It's like it's a very modern show, got a lot of really cool representation and a lot of really cool people and stuff like that. As I mentioned, the blind engineer that doesn't use a visor to correct his vision is just blind, and uses like that's my favorite disability thing. The blind engineer is blind, does not have a visor, has the like all of the stuff in engineering is designed to accommodate him, which is the best like disability representation thing I've seen in a long time. And yeah, like just like all sorts of like little things like that. But then also because it's trying to harp on the 60s show, everything's super colorful. Be like all the hallways are white, all the uniforms are bright colored, and like it's a really good combo. Third question. Oh wait, that was the third question.
But yeah, I definitely do want to watch it. I not too long ago I watched Picard season 2, and that was very good. And I do like the world building there too.
Yeah.
I remember texting you along the sense of like the fact that they have to have Brent Spiner in every fucking season of every show. So they have like 400 different fucking generations of Dr. Soong.
Yeah, man, that's some powerful genes.
The seed is strong.
The seed is very strong. It'd be funny if the Soong line goes all the way back to a science fiction actor who just has like the most powerful seed. Just Brent Spiner fucks so much that he just like spawns this like family. He's like the freaking Genghis Khan of the 1990s.
Like one perfect like lineage of essentially clones. I love it.
Sparkfield is correct. Picard season 2 was a mess, but it is like it's a hot mess that I love anyway. That's the trick. It was messy. I know Jesse Jenner didn't like it, but I was like, it was an endearing hot mess.
I like it.
Its plot was all over the place. It was great. I'll take it.
Chaotic.
I liked that it took the approach of there are people who believe in subtext. Those people are cowards.
Yeah.
I like that I'm glad that cause Star Trek's all about analogy, and it's like, no, this time it's literally ice that are fucking assholes, and I'm like, all right, cool. I'm cool with this. I can take this for one season of a show.
Like the villain in a season that has the Borg. Is immigration
fucking yeah, and also Borg redemption arc. That was something I did not expect. That's
yeah,
pretty cool.
what was that about? Like I was expecting Borg horror, but yeah, Borg redemption arc. It's gonna be interesting to see how that turns out in season 3.
And also, if we have to deal with it, Alison Pill being the Borg queen, I will take forever. Thank you. That is good.
Yeah.
Alison Pill can be whatever she wants, but if she wants to be the Borg queen in the Star Trek universe, I'm down for that always.
We support her.
We stand a Borg queen. But yeah, the new show is pretty good. And I like that they're playing into stuff like the most recent episode had to do with the Gorn. And it
fun.
But like the thing is, they get to do different things. This is why I love episodic shows a little bit more than like this sort of like binge focused culture that we have, because you end up with like the third episode is basically sort of a Hunt for Red October feel. Because it's basically the Enterprise is being hunted by the Gorn in a nebula, and they have like the whole like pinging sonar sounds and everything like that, and it's like, oh my god, this is so good.
Good.
Yeah. So the next question we got here is from Tobias Zaremba, who asks, "What's it like to live in interesting times?" Okay. Yeah, it's like, what's it called? Help! I'm living in interesting times, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I would love to live in one of those times that history books glosses over. Mm-hmm. That would be nice to me.
Can you watch Strange New Worlds without watching this?
In a time when there's like war in Europe, food crisis, pandemic, fucking monkeypox potentially, financial collapse, and also backsliding democracy.
Yeah.
Enough.
We're now entering into a pandemic turducken, and yeah, especially because
pandemic turducken. It's a war. It's a pandemic stuffed in a war, stuffed in a pandemic.
Yeah. The fact that like Health Canada had to have its first public announcement about monkeypox, and I'm like, oh my god, please, they're just getting a vaccine together now that can help 6-month to 5-year-olds from COVID. And now fucking monkeypox? Come on.
I've heard people say that it's not something to worry about, but at the same time, the WHO has said it's a moderate risk to global health.
I think it feels like it's
fucking COVID in December.
I think it's going to be in many ways like if it gets widespread, it's more like COVID in the sense of like the problem is going to come more from mass illness and disruption caused by that rather than mass death, but it's still going to be bad. And it's a fucking pox, which means that it causes people to have like permanent scars all over their body and stuff like that. And it's like, Jesus Christ. We're going back to buboes, everybody. We're just fucking Plague 2.
Yes. The bubonics are coming back.
It would be just our luck for the next thing to be like, yeah, let's just do it. Let's just do bubonic plague. Why not? We decided to just have...
like sooner or later, like next year or some shit, in the trajectory that we're going.
Antibiotic resistant form of plague.
Exactly. It's gonna come back with full-on buboes, and there's gonna be nothing we can do. Oh. I love the fact that like basically all scientists predict that within my lifetime there will be a plague of an antibiotics resistant bacteria.
Yeah, we're gonna
love that.
Yeah, we're gonna go back to, because we decided to eat so many cows, we're gonna go back to a state where where if you get a cut, you just might die. There's just a chance that might happen.
It's great. And all we paid for it was hamburgers.
Yeah. Don't you? Isn't life
Small price to pay for hamburger.
Okay, so this is a question. This one's good for you. So with Sweden and Finland joining NATO and Turkey making outrageous demands for it, is there any chance that NATO will become fractured?
I'm not sure NATO will become fractured. NATO is a weird alliance in the sense of like they will value their unity above everything. There is a chance that Sweden might withdraw its application. I've seen a lot of people who in Swedish sort of like opinion pieces talking about that. That like we essentially got rejected by NATO. By one country, but still. So the honorable thing to do rather is sort of like, okay, well then I guess we're gonna keep our neutrality then and just like withdraw.
Oh, I did not know there was development on that front. So you guys like are not joining NATO now.
No, we still are, but some people are arguing that we shouldn't. So it could go either way.
Okay.
So as far as I know, the Swedish delegation is still like trying to get into NATO. But like last week or some shit, like there was a Swedish-Finnish delegation to Turkey to try to like talk it out, and it didn't go anywhere.
Because like Erdogan is kind of Russia aligned, isn't he?
I don't know, but he's definitely like not Sweden aligned. I think in the choice between Russia and Sweden, he prefers Russia.
Yeah, and the thing is that
great NATO member.
Turkey is going to have a lot of power because if I recall correctly, I don't know if this is true anymore, but actually no, it's not true. I thought the U.S. still had missile launchers there, but they do not.
No, not anymore.
Because of the Cuban Missile Crisis, they got rid of them.
Yes.
But yeah.
But like it's still like it's the demands are so outrageous, and I don't think he's gonna like buckle because he has nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, great. I guess we're not joining NATO. We're definitely going. I feel like we're going to. I feel like we're not gonna be able to join NATO. Like at all. I feel like the war is gonna keep going. Our application is gonna keep going, and then one day the war will end. People will forget about our application, and we will remain neutral because of the incompetence of the Social Democrats, who didn't think that maybe Turkey would like set some demands from us.
Mm-hmm. There's some, I mean, maybe not in the case of specifically Sweden and Finland, but it's just like the one Muslim country in NATO just being like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. We saw what you did to those refugees. Fuck you, fuck you.
Well, essentially what Turkey wants to do is they want Sweden to deport political dissidents from the YPG and the.
I know they're not doing it for the right reason.
Yeah.
It's because Erdogan's a fucking dictator.
Yeah.
That's the other thing is that NATO is this country that used to be all democracies and now has several dictatorships in it.
Fucked up thing though is if you say this is such a hot topic in Sweden. Like if you say that Erdogan is a dictator, which he is, people on Twitter and also like in Sweden will be like, he's not a dictator. He won an election. He won multiple elections, and there were multiple multiple opposition parties are allowed. And I'm like, okay, yeah, there are parties allowed. Some of them aren't though. Like a lot of Kurdish parties like have to be in jail whenever there's an election. That doesn't feel very democratic to me.
Somebody did point out that NATO was founded with fascists when Portugal was still fascist. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I forgot about that. Forgot about Salazar and Franco.
Fucking everyone forgets about fucking Salazar.
Yeah, oh man. This war has brought out some weird fucking stuff, I gotta say.
It's great. I love to be one ocean away, just one big lake away from Russia during these times.
Or one very cold walk.
One very cold walk.
You could technically
Great.
walk to Russia. It would be very cold and it would take a long time, but you could do
Yeah.
it.
I could be like if I wanted to, I could take a ferry and be there like tonight.
Yeah. And because you're in Europe and have public transit, it would probably cost you like 25 bucks.
Probably.
The fact that like I heard that I don't know how true this is, but I've heard that like you can in Europe take like there's like flights that are like $30.
Yeah, I used to be able to go to the UK for like $10.
What?
It was great. Yeah, it was great. I miss it so much. Just being able, because you could just go to the UK and like crash at a friend's house for like the weekend, and
my
then
God.
for like $10, and then you're good. Now they're not in the EU anymore, so fuck them. Now it costs like $30, which is very expensive to me. But yeah, we can basically go anywhere for hella cheap because Ryanair essentially packs people in like sardines and flies planes that are like 800 years old and held together by duct tape.
It would cost me, I think, about $150 to $200 a ticket for us to go from here where I live to Chicago where my wife's family live, and to drive would take 6 hours.
Oh my god.
Which, yeah, like it would be like it's like 6 hour drive. I'm trying to think about how much of Europe that would be. It's not a lot. You'd still be in the same country for the most part.
Yeah, probably. I might be able to make it to Denmark if I really drove really quickly
Yeah.
on the highway.
And a good chunk of that would be having to buy a shuttle to the airport in Toronto because the airport in London stopped doing flights to Chicago, which is just like, okay,
Why?
because not enough people were taking them, so it wasn't profitable anymore.
Oh, of course.
This is fun. I like just like what's it called? Living in a country where we did all of our infrastructure building in the 60s and then have just been cannibalizing it ever since is just, it's great. I love it. I love life.
It's great.
Things are great. We're doing fine.
Did we talk about this like when we started making these streams, like in 2019 or some shit?
Probably. I feel like we've talked about a lot of things.
Yeah, but like, did we have this sort of like dire outlook on the world at that point?
I thought so.
Maybe.
Like, the thing is that I have like a kid now that I have to make a world for. And it's tough. This is tough shit.
Rough. You know.
Oh, man.
I love the future.
Yeah. Here's a good question here from Ricky. If you could teach everyone in the world one thing about history, what would it be? Could be specifically about Canada, the US, the world, whatever you want.
For some reason, the only thing I can come up with is the Council of Nicaea.
That
More
would
people should know about the Council of Nicaea.
That is true. The fact that that the Bible was decided by a committee in Constantinople or in Nicaea, sorry, by a bunch of old Greek men.
It's great.
Yeah, and that there's a whole bunch of books that just did not get in.
Yeah, I love to talk about the divinity of Jesus and also change the calendar by 3 days.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, okay. There's a tough one. I want to say that the one thing that I like to teach people that I really want more literacy on is that I wish more people knew that the American Constitution was something that was controversial, undesirable by a lot of states, and that a lot of people had very different ideas of what they wanted it to be. And that it's not like it wasn't some divinely inspired document. I feel like the U.S. really needs to learn about how the Constitution. All right, this is just a step back video, isn't it? But yeah, like the Constitution was, first of all, The U.S. had a functioning government beforehand that was, well, not super functioning, but it was much more egalitarian and it was much more decentralized, and it had its own thing going on. And then, because it was based on principles that it was based on, it didn't have like set out principles, and so what happened was is that some people thought that the revolutionary spirit was still alive, and because one state decided to put a tax on whiskey, a bunch of people rose up against the government because they were all told that, you know, the blood of or the tree of liberty has to be watered with the blood of tyrants. And then George Washington, who was actively president at this time, had to lead an army to put down this rebellion of people protesting taxes, in one of the most ironic conflicts in American history. And then afterwards, they're like, all right, guess we have to make a constitution so that we can decide all these things for other people. And that there was a time where they wanted to, in the Constitution, enshrine all sorts of ideas. One idea, like I think Alexander Hamilton was a fan of the idea of making the president a monarchy and having a king of the United States who would be constrained in power but would be inherited title. And so that they would replace King George with King George.
I love replacing King George with King George.
And on the opposite end of the spectrum, you had Benjamin Franklin, whose idea was to have a council of 5 presidents. Which might not be a bad idea.
Swiss as a government.
Yeah, that's the yeah. Or, you know what America would really benefit from, and I feel like it would really work for their political culture, but they should do it, is that something closer to what Germany does, where they have like a prime minister or a, what's it called, chancellor, who does all the real work, and the president is just sort of this person that they wave around to do tricks and stuff. What if the president was just like a person who just gets, who they just bring out to do, like, to just be the mascot of America? So then you can elect a Donald Trump because he's funny, and you don't have to worry about him fucking up everything.
President Donald Trump, but he has no actual power. I like that. Chancellor, who is the chancellor in that scenario?
I guess it would be Nancy Pelosi.
Have to be the same.
The head of the U.S.'s government would be the Speaker of the House, and the Speaker of the House would be Nancy Pelosi right now.
Oh my God! Yeah, so Chancellor Pelosi.
Chancellor Pelosi.
Oh God.
Yeah,
I am the Senate.
That would be fun. The U.S. has got this weird thing where all of its branches of government are co-equal, which basically makes it so that all 3 have to agree on something for anything to happen, because the whole government was designed to make things very hard to change. Turns out,
a great system for government.
Yeah, it turns out that, because in America they say it's all checks and balances. In reality, what it means is that they set up the entire government to make it extremely hard to do anything. And so every aspect of the government is designed to undermine all of the other aspects of it, which results in the absolute shit show it is today.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it works. America is still around.
Yeah.
Now.
America's government is much closer to Russia's government, which is that they have this extremely powerful president with not many checks on his power.
Yeah.
So I'm learning that basically that was like the thing that set Russia off, is they made a constitution that gave the president ridiculous amounts of power, and then Russia became the Russia of today.
Yeah.
Because Boris Yeltsin needed to be tough on Chechnyans or something. So.
Yeah, because of weird apartment bombings in Moscow and St. Petersburg, that definitely was not orchestrated by the FSB.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also I realize this is another thing that would be wild to see that could happen if Russia really suffers from this war, and that is Russia was on the brink of having several countries try to leave, especially the oil-rich ones, because Russia is still a federation of several republics. Like at one point in the 90s, there was an attempt from Tatarstan to leave, which is Tatarstan is part of Russia that basically has all of its oil.
I love Tatarstan.
Yes, and I would love a country called Tatarstan to exist.
Yes.
And then they can It'd be pretty interesting.
It's I have a okay. Can I tell an interesting story?
Sure.
So it has nothing to do with Russia specifically, but it has to do with the Tatar people. So Tatar is an ethnicity, right? Like it's a ethnicity used to be very common in Crimea before I think before like the Russian Empire decided to genocide. It may have been Stalin.
Yeah,
I'm not
I think it
fully
was.
sure.
I think it was Stalin's project to just move people around, basically.
Yeah. Uh, moving people around. Um, but it's like an ethnic group. That has been that there and whose members have been in many various countries in throughout Europe as well. In Sweden, it's actually a slur for Romani people because
Tartar.
racist. Yes, so racist Swedes in like the 1800s and early 1900s conflated like all sort of like poor Eastern Europeans and called them Tatar.
Tatars.
I
Tatars.
can't say.
I was saying tartar like tartar sauce.
in
Oh my god.
Sweden.
I was saying tartar, not tatar, because I'm a dumbass,
Yes.
and I was thinking of fucking the sauce you put on fish.
Yes, but I feel uncomfortable saying the Swedish equivalent of it because it's like a slur.
Jeez, that's wild.
Yeah, fun history.
It's like how I learned, because I was thinking at one point of making a video about anti-Zionism, and I still might, but I feel like a European would have a better time making a video about that. But I was going to make a video about anti-Zionism, and then someone pointed out that in their country, Zygan is the slur for Romani people. And I'm like, is there a word for these people that's not a slur? Like,
No.
it seems like like everywhere they go, like one of them is like, yeah, like whatever word for them is just a slur. And I'm like, oh, gee.
Listen, Europe has had hundreds and maybe thousands of years to perfect our racism. We have made it into an art form. It's not good.
By the way, the other republic that was looking into breaking off from Russia was called Dagestan, or Dagestan, which is sort of on the border of where Russia and I think Armenia and Azerbaijan are. It's sort of on the Caspian Sea. So it's another one of the oil-rich republics, I think. But it's just like, oh man, can you imagine Russian balkanization?
I can. It's happened multiple times.
Because Russia's got a lot of... Like, Russia is still kind of a Soviet Union in a way.
Russia... Weird how this comes up, because this is literally like a point in my upcoming video that the idea of like the Russian Empire like didn't fully go away after the fall of the Russian Empire into the Soviet Union. It just became like the Russian Empire 2, sort of. New ideology, new branding, new everything. But a lot of this sort of imperial branding like remains. With like small subdivision, a lot of subdivisions of its administration, and like very few things that is Russian specific, because Russians are in charge of the entire thing. Then the Soviet Union collapses, everything splits up again, but Russia is still like not like its own nation state. Because like Russia did not have a nation state for Russians during Imperial Russia, and didn't have it like very much during the Soviet Union either, and has only since the 90s had to sort of like, okay, it's a nation, a Russian nation. What does that mean? And that's like that's like 20 years old at this point. I guess 30, but so much of the like ideology of like the of the former sort of nationalist feelings still remains. A lot of the administration still remains, and a lot of the subdivisions also still remain. So it might collapse again, like the previous 2 times.
Oh man, balkanized Russia. That would be wild. Yeah, the thing is,
I've played Hearts of Iron.
Someone said, guess that's not going to happen anytime soon. Here's the thing, though, is that Russia is a country where, because this is what happens every time you have a strongman dictator, is that all of the leaders of those republics that I'm talking about, a lot of them are loyal specifically to Vladimir Putin because they are basically Putin apologists. Like they're people that Putin manipulated into their jobs, which means that, and this is sort of like, because there's a lot of, every time you have a country that's basically like a bunch of countries that's being held together, there's like a strong man in the center who basically only keeps it together because everyone who's running all these different enclaves are loyal to him specifically. This was true of Milosevic. This was true of Saddam Hussein. And I think it's true of Putin. And if Putin just dies, which some people are apparently suspicious that he might have cancer or something.
Yes, he has an oncologist walking him around everywhere.
Yeah,
and Ukrainian intelligence, I think, said something like not too long ago that he might have it, but that might be propaganda.
Yeah. So if Putin just fucking dies, that would be, first of all of those like Dagestan and Tatarstan and all those kinds of groups would all be like, their presidents are only in Russia because of personal loyalties to Putin, especially the Chechnyan president. You can tell, like, if Putin hasn't lined up a clear successor, if he dies, and if he dies suddenly, the Russian government's going to be like, I mean, it seems like Russia can't change leaders without political chaos, but it's going to, like, it's not like the Soviet Union where communism was holding it together, right? It's going to just be a fucking free-for-all. And
because there's very little. I've read so much fucking Russian history books for this fucking video, so I actually feel comfortable talking about it. Like, there's like not much of like a cohesive state. There's not enough state building like built around what it means to like have a Russian state yet. So, and a lot of that, some of it was like built up in the 90s up until like 2002, but ever since fucking Putin, like you mentioned, it's kind of been dismantled again to sort of like be built more around like a nostalgic feeling around the Soviet Union and Putin. Without him, none of it fucking works.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's also why he's been sort of promoting the sort of like revitalization of Stalin's image and sort of like strongman ideology. Because like if no one goes in after him, it's going to be chaos. Even when, what was the previous guy? Medvedev?
Medvedev, yeah, the guy who was prime minister or president for 4 years because of term limits, where
yes,
Putin was literally he went from president to prime minister, made Medvedev the president, and then everyone apparently behind the scenes knew that Putin was still basically running everything, but he just was constrained by term limits. And then the first thing he does when he gets his second term is to pass a constitutional amendment so that he doesn't have to have term limits anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said to me that some person who's a bit more of a Russianist said to me that like Russia's ideal situation is to have to Russians is to have a dictator that at any time, if they go too far, they can just push a button and eject them out of office. That would be their ideal situation. It's like, okay, interesting. But if you think about it, like Russia's never really had democracy, and democracy is one of those things that takes like generations to normalize and to make part of the culture. Like, it's not like a thing that you can just slap onto a country and say, all right, you're a democracy now, problem solved.
Yeah.
And
like, do your elections freely and fairly.
And in many ways, the Soviet Union did have some forms of democracy. It was like sort of inter-party primary type stuff, but it did exist. What people don't talk about, like the Soviet Union did hold elections, just because, and China still has elections, but they're just not multi-party elections, so people don't care.
The most fun part of everything that I love, though, about Soviet elections and Chinese elections are independence.
Oh boy!
Because like
brave move.
I know, right? Like, there's one party. But you can also be an independent. I think there are like independents in the Chinese fucking what do they call it? Yeah, but like even in the Soviet like system, they always had like a few independent
man
like elected positions, which is like really interesting. Imagine like being a politician in the Soviet Union and not being not being a member of the Communist Party.
Just just like literally every human being you interact with is a KGB agent watching you.
Yes. Your wife, your kid, they're all KGB agents.
Somebody pulled that today. They people would try to pull that today in Russia, but they would suffer from the fact that they're very vulnerable to polonium.
It's weird how a lot of opposition politicians are just weirdly susceptible to polonium poisoning.
Yeah. Which is just like, oh man, Russian politics is a fucking contact sport. Russian politics is like Game of Thrones, it seems.
God, reading the history books for this fucking video is also really interesting because like half of them are made by people who are like within Russia who you can tell by reading the book that like this is a very specifically written history book about Putin, or like about like modern day Russian nationalism, and it really you can see like with surgical precision how they sort of like avoid criticizing Putin.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like other Russian historians who like live in like Germany or some shit, who will write basically the exact same thing, but then also be like, oh yeah, and also Putin is also responsible for like this like far right, ultra nationalist revival.
Mm-hmm.
Very openly being in opposition.
Yeah, there was a like actual like Soviet fascism project in Russia in the 90s that fell apart, and now everyone who was leading that are friends with Caleb Maupin for some reason, so that's fun. But
weird.
Yeah. There's this one thing that I learned that was wild, that for a long time in Russian politics, even to this day, the Communist Party is still like major to the point where it's like the opposition, but that for a long time, the leader of the party and the presidential candidate was still Gorbachev. And it's like, man, can you imagine Gorbachev just getting reelected as president of Russia?
Would be very funny.
He's still alive. He still occasionally takes interviews. He's like in his 90s, but yeah, he's still somehow still.
Do you think you could like email him and like have him on like on a leftist YouTube setting, like when like how Noam Chomsky just like replies to emails?
Yeah, well,
Like,
what if you
streams and
CC'd
shit?
Gorbachev and Chomsky and you get them in the same Zoom call? I wonder what they'd talk about.
I would pay so much money to see this.
Because like
would also-
they're both ancient humans, but they're both like socialists of like the ancient order, but very different types.
I'd love to have like Gorbachev on a podcast talking about like, so how do you
What's it called? Get them on like what's that fucking podcast or YouTube show where they get people to eat really hot like chicken wings?
Yeah, I know. Just have Gorbachev just eating the spiciest wings ever. So how do you feel about the modern state of the Russian state, and like how do you think like privatization went?
Yes. Okay. So now we know the setting. So Gorbachev and Chomsky need to have a panel discussion on the podcast / YouTube channel Hot Ones, where they're both eating hot chicken wings and talking about
Oh my God.
basically authoritarian versus libertarian communism. I guess Gorbachev's more of a social democrat, isn't he?
Yeah. But he's an actual social democrat. Like, in fairness to him, he is an actual social democrat, as opposed to like the social democrats in Sweden and in many Western European countries where social democrats are basically just centrists.
Mm-hmm. I think the special. I think that at one point there was one of his last ditch efforts to save the USSR was to convert it into something like the European Union.
You gotta rise and grind.
Yeah, at that point, apparently his authority extended to basically just the Kremlin.
Yeah. The building. Nothing else. Orangeman says, well, there's a problem with special guest Mikhail Gorbachev from the USSR.
Oh, man. So how about better than Chomsky, Gorbachev and Alice Avizandum in the same room together?
Oh my god, are you kidding me? I would kill to see this. Alice and Gorbachev together. Not talking politics, they'd talk like clocks.
They talk about uniform design. Because Alice would have opinions about late Soviet era Red Army uniforms because she's like addicted to buying old military surplus on eBay, basically, as far as I can tell.
If I get it. I 100% get it. Can I buy a pickle hub from eBay? Hold on.
Pickle Hub, like I don't know, like like they stopped making those like 100 years ago. It would not be an authentic one, that's for sure. Because I feel like that would cost you. There'd be a few zeros on the price of that one.
I don't know.
Because wasn't a pickle haba like wasn't that an officer's cap or an officer helmet?
Sort of, yeah. It's a ceremonial thing. Okay, I'm finding one for 16,000 kroner, which is like 1.5. It's like 2 grand.
Yeah, because I was like that. I was like, when did they stop? When did the German army stop using those?
I don't know. God, some of these are really expensive.
Yeah, you know what you can get for cheap is Confederate dollars. Because right before the Confederate States of America collapsed, they went into a period of like ridiculous hyperinflation, and they printed like trillions of dollars, and they were completely worthless after the war. So like, there's tons of them still around.
That's amazing.
Okay, next question we got.
Sorry, I just found a pickle with a skull on it. I feel like that.
So
are we the baddies?
Did they have them in World War II or?
No, this is a World War One from 1916.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
From some Totenkopf division, which is dark, old as shit. Okay, this is they're all in very bad condition and they're all very expensive. So yeah, okay.
Okay, so the next thing we got here is, do you think that this is from all the way from May 19th? So, Roe v. Wade getting overhauled was the discourse of that time. Do you think that the Roe overruling will break some libs of their conviction that the sort of you know how liberals have that like long arc of history belief because they don't understand history?
I'm not sure it's gonna break their conviction though, because I don't think a lot of liberals see this as a sort of like. I don't think that they connect this is history in the making. I think they just see it as sort of like. The long arc of history would be more progressive if it wasn't for the fucking Republicans, so that's why you gotta vote.
Oh my god.
That's legitimately how I think.
Yeah, I was thinking of something the other day. I was thinking of some like cases, and this just like shows how much stuff has changed. Like I was thinking about how what came to mind was you remember Michael Richards having his career destroyed by doing like a racial slur focused yelling thing during a stand-up act.
Yes.
Michael Richards, the guy who played Kramer on Seinfeld.
Yeah.
So I'm like thinking like his career instantly was destroyed, and nobody thought that was controversial at the time. And it's like that just shows that 15 years ago, we were so much more socially progressive than we are today. Because it would be a completely different story if that happened today.
Yeah.
And it just shows, I think there was a Lindsay Ellis video from a long time ago that was talking about open sexuality in, like, a movie from the 70s. And they're like, is this movie ahead of its time? And she said a very good line that I think works. And that it was like, no, it was of its time. It's ahead of our time. And it's like, yeah.
It's good.
Next up we got here is Tristan. Given how Mo Pen made that Left Tube book where he dug up personal information on people he didn't like and tried to dox people, are you worried about that happening to you? A little bit, yeah. Comes to the territory, but I do some stuff to try and keep people from finding where I live. I've had 2 cases where I've been on the street and somebody recognized me on the street, and I was a little bit too close to home for me to be comfortable. But sorry,
I had that. I had that the other day. I was on the bus, like going home, and I live really close to the bus stop. And someone on the bus came up to me and recognized me,
yeah,
and I had to be like, "Oh, nice, hey." And then I had to I had to think in the moment of like, okay, I have to wait until they get off, and then I can get off, because otherwise they'll know where I live.
yeah, it's a legitimate terror. So yeah,
I love being a creator.
yeah, I love that. I mean, I'm about to release a video in 25 minutes. That's about the deep connections of the U.S. police force with white supremacist groups and militias. So, yeah, looking forward to the comments on that one. And I also do stuff like so YouTube lets you make like blocked off words in your comment section, and I have like my name, I have like my my son's legal name, and I have like my address and phone number and all that kind of stuff in the blocked words. So if anyone posts it, it just immediately gets filtered out.
Right.
That was advice that was given to me by Hank Green.
That is very smart. I'm going to do that myself.
Yeah, it's a good idea. But yeah, I think every creator who has a sufficiently large audience has to put a lot of work into making sure that they don't get, and especially queer people, because I mean, you guys are harassed just existing, let alone being famous. And you are like a semi-notable queer activist in Sweden and in like the Swedish language sphere, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not anymore, unfortunately.
Well, now you're just a local politician.
Yeah, now I'm old school now. I'm old news.
But still, like, I imagine that at that time you probably had to put a lot of thought towards your own security.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
God, I have a friend who lives in like downtown Stockholm who regularly gets her house attacked by Nazis. Like regularly.
Jesus Christ.
She's like involved in, because like Antifa in the US is like it's just a label for people who are against like anti-fascists, right? Like it doesn't mean anything. It's not an organization. In Sweden, it is an organization. It is a very decentralized militant organization, and she's part of that organization. And they figured that out, so that's why they attack her.
Mm-hmm. God damn. Is it true that in Sweden that friends hang out at a buddy's place wouldn't get invited to eat with the... They're talking about Swedish hospitality in the chat, and people are freaking out that apparently in Sweden, if you go to a friend's house, they wouldn't get invited to eat. What is this? What is going on here?
This became like a meme on Reddit, I think, yesterday, because someone was saying that, yeah, they were hanging out with a friend, and their friend like left and said, "Oh, I'll be right back," and then they went to eat with their family and just left their friend and didn't eat with them. Didn't invite them to dinner. I've never experienced this, to be fair. Has never happened to me. So I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. This might be a sort of like rich person thing or a city thing. Because I come from the country and my family is extraordinarily working class. And so was everyone in the village. So everyone...
Yeah. I feel like it's a class thing everywhere, because any working class people that I've ever been to their house, you can't leave without them packing like 3,000 calories into your body.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
Yeah. They will there are people. I mean, I think there are some cultures where there are some places where working class, you are going to go there and they're going to make you eat something before you leave. Then there are some cultures where you will have to kill somebody if you don't want to eat food. Like there are old ladies, like in my French family, for example, where if I don't want to eat there, I might have to kill them to do so. But yeah, but rich people, fuck no, they wouldn't do that.
Never trust the rich. It's always rich people also, like if you hang out with them like in social settings, they're always the one who never like pay for any drinks or any food or snacks. They're
Hmm.
always the one who's like asks you to Venmo like $2.
Yeah.
And then you got like poor people who like give you a pizza for nothing.
Somebody named Sayej Singh just said Indian grandma 3,000. Those are rookie numbers. Goddamn. Want, want
I did once have dinner with an Indian friend, and it is true.
want to buy Indian grandma? Please send tell. This makes me a little sad because I don't have any grandmas anymore. But neither of my grandmas
neither.
were very much cooks, so I missed out on this aspect.
Mm.
I did know. Wait, no, I was very young when this happened because my great grandmother died when I was like maybe like 6 or 7, but she was Prussian and
Russian.
just like was made of baked goods. Yeah, she immigrated to Canada from Prussia when she was a baby.
Oh.
Her father had died in the her father who never met her because he died while her mom was pregnant. Died in the fucking Franco-Prussian War.
Damn.
She's the one where like her background and stuff like that was very like murky and we didn't really know the whole story, just that she came from Prussia. And then we all did 23andMe's or whatever because my mom wanted the DNA for her family tree stuff. And it's like, oh, like 3 or 4% Ashkenazi. Interesting. That's new.
Very interesting.
It's like, I guess like, yeah. Did she refer to herself as Prussian? I don't think so. She was very old. And when you're talking to your 6 or 7-year-old, she doesn't talk a whole lot about the country she came from. Like, she didn't remember Prussia at all because she was a baby when she immigrated to Canada. So, like, probably like, yeah, like, there's not that kind of connection. Just like my best friend here, he immigrated to Canada from China when he was 5. He's like, he doesn't remember China. He knows enough to talk to his grandma, like, of the language and stuff, and that's it.
That's all. I feel like that's all anyone ever really needs to remember.
Yeah. But I do know that kind of on the cultures and food thing is that he's now dating this girl who is she is Indian and like immigrated to Canada like 3 years ago from West Bengal, and she cooks so much food. It's ridiculous. But it also like future Indian grandma fashion, like 80 pounds, and will like cook like 7,000 calories of food every meal.
Less.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Has any one of you often felt like you don't belong in a community? I often feel that whenever I interact with other queer people. From Pim Koremans, otherwise known as Cybercat.
I feel that way occasionally. I feel like that way a lot when I legitimately like in YouTube spaces.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like I don't know if this is just me. Maybe everyone feels this way, but it feels like there's a lot of cliques between YouTubers.
That is true.
And like I know a lot of YouTubers. Like I'm friends with a few, but like I feel like you can be friends with someone and you can be like you can hang out, and then there's like a clique where there's something deeper, and I've never been able to reach that.
Mm-hmm.
So I do feel a little bit like still a bit on the outside on the whole like YouTuber scape. That might just be because I have social anxiety and I'm really bad at it, but
It does feel like, and it's weird because they would insist that doesn't exist, that there's like a bunch of people who all group text each other that all know each other, but that I'm not privy to, which is fine. It's just like, whenever you go to like an in-person event, you're like, all these people are friends and I'm just here. Okay.
yeah.
So
And
that
it's like, oh, all of you know each other very intimately. Oh, interesting.
mm-hmm.
Very good.
That
I will
happened.
be over here alone.
We call that VidCon.
That's why. That's legitimately why I like don't want to go to VidCon.
Yeah.
Because I know that would happen. I would spend like 2 days on an airplane to get there, and spend like half my bank account,
Yeah.
and then like say hi to 2 people.
Yeah, when I did that, and then everybody was hanging out at the hotel because they all had those creator passes, and I went to Disneyland to get a burrito. Somebody wanted a repeat of the question, and it is, do you often feel like you don't belong in a community? I often feel that whenever I interact with queer people specifically. That was the person's question.
Mm.
Yeah, I used to know, or like, I mean, I don't like YouTuber community for sure. I also, and what's it called? Don't take any egg things away from this. But like, I also find that I don't do well when I'm in groups with all other guys. Like if I'm in a room with all other, like I feel like I don't fit in with like all guy groups very often. That's just me though. What makes Canadian internet so bad? I already answered that one. Oh boy. Okay, here's some things. In a space filled with backpfeifenischt, how does Paul Joseph Watson end up being somehow among the most punchable of YouTube chuds? I do not know this German. This is a German word. I don't know.
Backpfeifen I can't pronounce that either. Backpfeifen. Yeah, Backpfeifengeschichte. I think, I don't know if this is true or not. I think it means a face badly in need of punching.
Oh. That there would be a German word for that.
Yeah.
How
I'm gonna Google this word to see if that's actually, yeah, Backpfeifengeschichte.
So how does Paul Joseph Watson end up being the most punchable of the YouTube chuds? I feel like it's his tone of voice. He's got the most arrogant of the tone of voices of the people. Like, he's... Like, I don't think anyone takes him seriously anymore. I don't think.
No.
But he...
Well, some people on the extreme right do, but that's basically it.
Because, like, the thing is, like, all right, thinking about punching all of the chuds in the face, like, I feel like if I did that to Benny Shapiro, I'd feel bad. Because I have a feeling that he's very fragile. Same with, this is Steve Crowder, who, like, is, like, Bolsonaro levels of in the hospital.
Yeah. He's always in the fucking hospital.
Yeah. But Paul Joseph Watson has that that thing of like arrogant and annoying to probably wouldn't feel too bad about just socking him in the face. So that's it. German words aren't real. They're just sentences without spaces. Yes.
They're called compound words, and Swedish has them too.
Yeah. English is always just completely fascinated by those. Okay. Let's see what we got next. Something I find odd about the US is even though elected officials keep getting more and more reactionary, but popular culture keeps getting more and more socially progressive. Like red states are trying to pass laws criminalizing letting kids transition. At the exact same time, Disney is introducing the first non-binary characters into their show. If those two trends continue, do you think they'll come into conflict at some point? Like how they have effective control of the Supreme Court. Do you think it's a plausible future Republican majority will try to pass some modern version of the Hays Code, i.e. one that would make it illegal to depict LGBTQ people in a positive light in any film or TV show produced in the US?
100%.
Yeah, probably. I have a feeling that there's this...
The fact that they're already like they're already banning and burning books that do that.
Yeah. That is true. And also, I kind of also will bristle at some of this because Disney is not portraying LGBTQ people, and they've had a long history of not doing it for a lot of time. I will say that there is a thing where, like, I think that the left and right in America are in this position where each of them have one sort of power and are jealous of the other side for having their power. Like the reactionary right in America has all the political power and all of the hard power, basically. But the things they get mad about the most is like cartoons and people like existing on TV and stuff. But like the left have all the soft power, but they want to put in like actual change and stuff. But even then, there's like a bristle against that because really, most soft power, like most cultural products in America are a bunch of like liberals with socially progressive values working in a writing room that is funded by a bunch of like right-wing business conservatives who control what does and doesn't get money. Yep. And so a lot of American TV is like progressive-leaning people who are trying to push as far as they can get so that the money people who just care about making money will not pull funding. That's about it. But yeah, like I feel like in the U.S. specifically, I feel like we were in a way better place with LGBTQ acceptance like 2 years ago compared to now. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's
like even like right before Trump, I feel like was the high point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't great.
Yeah, because like the new thing that's like turfism has finally come over to America in a big way, and it has just the conservatives have gone wild. You're like, oh, a new kind of discrimination just dropped.
As always, the Brits are in the forefront of bigotry science.
Bigotry science. I think, yeah, in Oxford you can get a PhD in that.
Oh, for sure you can.
Yeah.
Boris Johnson has a degree in it.
Bigotry science. Oh, God, that's a good one. All right. Did you watch the John the Duncan video on work and disability? If yes, then what are your thoughts on it? I found it to be very good. I haven't watched a lot of YouTube lately, I'll be honest.
Neither.
I can't watch any YouTube that I have to think about because most of my YouTube watching is now while I am feeding a baby, and I still don't get a ton of sleep, and so I have to like not. I have limited brain power these days. My watch later list is getting fucking ridiculous, is the answer. All right.
I haven't seen it.
But John is a pretty good YouTuber.
Yeah.
I like his stuff.
I legitimately like don't have the time to watch YouTubers anymore. I feel like I watch
a lot of my favorite YouTubers. I'm like, I'm gonna not watch it on YouTube, and I'm gonna wait to watch it on Nebula, and then I never do.
Yeah, it's like that.
So next question we got here is, how do we stop the right's appropriation of dystopian literature like Brave New World in 1984? I've never seen the right try to use Brave New World. 1984 is definitely like a thing they use, but it's also because 1984 has just become shorthand for bad thing I don't like when government's involved. But like the people who try to invoke it haven't read it, and the people who seem to talk about it the most have not read 1984 or know anything about it, which makes me think that it's really not about them having the grasp on dystopianism. It's just that 1984 specifically is just become has just become word in sort of the right-wing lexicon, and the right wing is very good at taking a word and just destroying any and all use they can actually have by just turning it into word of thing I don't like.
Yeah, it's become like memified.
Like they make up a new thing to get mad about, and then make like the whole like critical race theory thing, where they took like an obscure legal theory from and they turned it into a blanket term for everything that they don't like.
Yes.
Just black people
Every time we
existing.
talk about history, yeah, black people existing, racism being talked about. Right.
Yeah.
It's critical race theory.
Which is, yeah, someone point out, which is exactly what 1984 was about. Yeah. 1984, like a lot of 1984's censorship is about how you can manipulate language specifically to change how people think. That's what 1984 was about. And specifically, killing words is what, like, Big Brother did.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Let's see what we got. Ontario election. Oh yeah, so Ontario's having an election on Thursday. So that's fun. So Ontario election shithead thoughts on the new Blue Party and how they'll fare in the election. So Ontario is having an election. It's looking like it's probably going to be Doug Ford getting reelected. It's looking like the Conservatives are going to win and do stuff. But the interesting thing is that because Doug Ford, at least before there was an election on the horizon, actually did stuff about COVID. Like they actually did lockdowns and they did things. They were always too late, but they actually did things. And the right wing sort of freaked out and broke with him because doing anything about COVID was bad. So now when I went to go vote, there's like 5 new hyper right wing parties that are running against the Conservatives. One of them being the New Blue Party, because blue is the color for the Conservatives in Canada.
New Blue Party.
And the New Blue Party is like a new conservative party that is almost exclusively mad about critical race theory and wokeism. I don't think it's going to do well because conservatives always get in line. They always vote for... They understand power in ways that liberals don't. And the Ontario Party apparently hired Roger Stone as a consultant. Oh my God. I honestly don't think that either of them are going to take up anything. And I don't even think they're going to get enough votes to even make the Conservatives sweat. I think the Conservatives are going to very easily sweep this election. We might have been able to get a mild social democratic government if the Liberals weren't actively trying to take away as many of their seats as possible to ensure that the Conservatives win. It's great election. Great election where we're going to have another government that comes in with 45% of the popular vote where everybody else voted for the 2 other parties. Don't you love... And also coalition governments are considered bad in Canada.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that.
So that's where we're at. Ontario is going to be screwed, especially because Doug Ford's trying to partly privatize, at least as much as he can within our constitutional limits, the healthcare system. So it's going to go great. This is going to be fun. But the Liberals basically knew they didn't have enough momentum to take over again, so their whole plan was just to prevent the New Democrats from taking power. That's their entire goal.
Healthy democracy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my province is in trouble. I mean, Canada's turning more right-wing by the day, but yeah. This is something of a technical question. Tristan, I know that you upload your podcast about ancient aliens to YouTube. In those videos, what do you use for the audio visualizer? I've been wanting to use something like that myself, but my own videos, I have no idea how to make something like that. It's a effect in After Effects called audio spectrum or something like that. You just
put it that. I've used a similar one, yeah.
You just put it on a like blank track and set it all up. That's how it works.
And you can customize it with color and everything. How it looks. It's great.
Yep. All right. Back in 2004, I watched a TV documentary that predicted the future. Everyone would have access to a database of every TV show ever made. Do you think that would have happened by now if not for capitalism? Like in a socialist society, instead of all of them competing for profit services like Netflix and Amazon Prime, would everyone just access the TV show database for free? Yeah, probably.
You do. It's called the Pirate Bay.
Yeah. Capitalism is already basically like capitalism is ruining streaming right now. Like it wasn't a good place when there was just the natural monopoly that was caused by the one company, but now as the free market and competition's coming in, it is actively making everything shitty.
Yeah.
Where the point is now to be able to buy all of the streaming services that you need to get all the TV, you're paying about as much as a cable subscription. Because
Sucks.
it's bullshit. Turns out capitalism not the best system. I'm learning.
We gotta teach kids how to torrent. Kids today don't know how to torrent.
This is true. All right, we're actually like making good progress. Oh no, wait, it's 2:00. That's a good last question. All right.
That explains why I'm like a little tired. Like my tiny ass office, I feel like it's running out of air after 2 hours. That's why I get like sleepy at the end. Because it's also evening here, so it's like both evening time, after dinner, and poor ventilation means I'm running out of air. So I always get sleepy at the end of these.
All right. Well, before we go, how about you tell everybody where they can find your content, and we're gonna go raid Rob Rousseau after that.
You can find my content on youtube.com/c/meamolder. Recently verified YouTube channel, by the way, so you can find it with the check mark because I'm famous. You can also find me on twitter.com/potatopolitics, but with no check mark because they didn't give me one.
It's invite only.
It is invite only. I have a Wikipedia page in 2 languages. Multiple newspapers have written about me and my activism over the years. I have a YouTube channel with over 100,000 subscribers. And yet, I need to write for like the smallest magazine in the world 1 article, and then I will be verified as a journalist.
Twitter.
I hate Twitter.
Yeah. Internet pending. I'll be back next week at the same time. But in the meantime, there's a new video out, so you can go check it out. But until then, I'm going to go raid Rob Rousseau, and we'll see you all later.